Hello and welcome to the deep dive. Life, well, it's full of challenges for all of us, isn't it?
Absolutely. Those moments that really test you.
Exactly. And we think a lot about physical health,
Yeah.
strengthening our bodies,
Yeah.
diet, exercise, all that.
Right.
And in a similar way, we often aim for mental strength too.
Yeah.
Resilience, that sort of inner core that helps us handle things.
Yeah, definitely.
But what if building that mental muscle isn't just about adding new things, new habits, things to do?
Okay.
What if maybe a big part of it is about deciding to stop doing certain things, letting go?
Oh, that's such an interesting angle because you always hear do this, add that. Right.
Right.
Meditate more, journal, set goals, be positive, which, can all be good things, sure.
Of course.
But the idea that maybe strengthening your mind involves subtracting stuff, like clearing out the mental junk drawer first.
That's a great way to put it. What are you not doing when you're mentally strong?
Exactly. Building on a clean slate.
And that's precisely the approach our source material takes for this deep dive. It's really quite a thought-provoking look at mentally strong people,
Okay.
but defined sort of unusually by the things they don't do, the actions they avoid. It's like a map to resilience, but by showing you the potholes to steer clear of.
Defining strength by what's not there. I really like that. It feels more like a choice you're making. Actively deciding, nope, not going down that road because it weakens me. I mean, I can definitely think of times I fall into some of those don't do patterns. It feels, I don't know, empowering to look at it this way.
It does frame it as an active thing, doesn't it? A discipline,
Yeah.
a series of choices, not just something you either have or you don't.
Yeah.
So our mission here is to unpack these 6 specific points from the source. We'll look at the what is this behavior they avoid, and crucially, the why. Why is letting this go so important for building that mental fortitude?
Okay, let's do it.
We'll go through it together, pulling the insights straight from the source and thinking about what it means for you listening right now.
All right, I'm ready. Let's dive deep.
Okay, let's start with the first one the source brings up. And this touches on something super common. A default mode, maybe, especially when things get tough. It's a real energy sink, too. The source is very clear. Mentally strong people absolutely do not waste time on self-pity.
Oof. Self-pity. Yeah, that feeling is so sticky, isn't it?
Sticky is a good word for it.
When something bad happens, or you're thinking about past hurts, the source even mentions trauma here. It feels almost automatic sometimes.
Why me? This isn't fair. you know, like a heavy blanket.
It does. And the source isn't saying tough things don't happen, or that pain isn't real. Problems, setbacks, hardship, that's just part of life, unavoidable.
Right.
And sometimes, like the source points out, it can be really severe stuff like trauma, which obviously has deep effects.
Sure. But the key distinction the source makes, it's that while the problem, the difficult thing, might be external, the falling into self-pity, that's presented as a choice, a response you can choose not to get stuck in.
A choice. Huh. That's a strong statement when you're feeling really down.
It is. The source draws this really clear line between 2 ways of reacting. The mentally strong approach. Face the problem head on.
Okay.
There's this shift towards, okay, what can be done now? What are the options? How do I navigate this specific situation? It's very present-focused and action-oriented.
Got it. Problem-solving mode.
Exactly. But then, in contrast, the source suggests that people who are maybe less mentally strong, they tend to internalize it differently.
How so?
They might see the problem or their struggle with it as being, well, their fault.
Yeah.
Sign of their own limits. I'm not good enough. I always mess up. This is just how I am. That kind of thing.
Ah, okay. So it becomes about them being flawed, not just about the situation being difficult.
Precisely. And that self-blame, attributing it to a flawed self,
Yeah.
that's what fuels the self-pity. And it can slide right into self-hate, according to the source.
So it's the difference between this is a problem I need to solve and I am the problem.
You've nailed it. That's the core difference. And the source sees self-pity and self-hate as, well, basically 2 sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
And both are massive drains on your mental energy.
Huge drains. They don't get you anywhere.
Not at all. So the source offers this counter strategy, actively training the brain. It's not passive. It's a conscious discipline.
Training the brain, like a muscle.
Exactly. You have to train it to shift towards problem solving when adversity hits. And also, and this can feel harder at first, train it to find gratitude for the situation, even in the middle of the difficulty.
Okay, training the brain, I get, like building a habit. But gratitude, when you're really struggling, that can feel almost wrong or impossible. What does the source mean by gratitude for the situation? Surely not being happy about the bad thing.
No, no, definitely not happy about the bad thing. That would be unrealistic. Maybe even invalidating.
Right.
The implication isn't forced positivity. It's more about shifting perspective to find something, anything, within or around the tough situation to be grateful for.
Okay, like what?
Well, maybe gratitude for a lesson you're learning, even if it's a really hard one.
Mm-hmm.
Or discovering a strength you didn't realize you had because of the challenge.
Ah, okay.
Maybe gratitude for support from others that shows up during the tough time. Or even just gratitude for the clarity it brings. Sometimes hardship really forces you to see what matters.
So it's finding a silver lining, but in a more active, intentional way, not just hoping for one.
I think that's a good way to see it. It's an active refusal to let your mind just spin in that why me loop.
Yeah.
The source is really direct here. Mentally strong people never waste energy on self-hate.
Never waste energy. That's powerful.
That mental bandwidth, it's just too valuable. It needs to be directed elsewhere.
Yeah, because self-pity and self-hate, they just consume everything and give nothing back. They really are like black holes.
Good analogy.
So by consciously redirecting that energy towards spotting the actual problem, thinking about solutions, maybe finding that tiny piece of gratitude or learning, you're not just avoiding the negative pit, you're actively building the muscle to move forward.
Exactly. You're exercising that problem-solving muscle, that perspective-shifting muscle. It's like inner energy management.
Yeah.
Think about it, how much mental energy gets burned up just replaying hurts or focusing on unfairness or listing your own perceived flaws.
A lot. Definitely a lot.
The source suggests mentally strong people who've learned to bypass that drain. Acknowledge the difficulty, feel the pain, sure, but then consciously pivot towards understanding, towards action.
So for you listening, maybe think about a recent challenge. Did you get stuck in that self-pity place?
And what might it feel like to try just for a moment redirecting that energy towards one tiny step or finding one small thing to appreciate within the mess? It's that deliberate brain training.
Okay, that first point is very internal, isn't it? Managing our own reactions. But the next one, from the source, it kind of turns outward.
It does.
It looks at how we position ourselves with others. Specifically, the source says, mentally strong people don't worry too much about what other people think. They aren't overly aware of others' opinions in a way that holds them back.
Right. And this one needs a bit of careful handling because the source isn't saying, just be a jerk or totally ignore everyone.
Uh-huh. Yeah, probably not helpful.
We live in society. We need some awareness of others, how our actions land, understanding perspectives. That's just basic social functioning.
Sure, of course.
The issue the source points to, it's when that awareness becomes a kind of paralyzing fear. When you literally can't speak up or go after a goal or make a choice that feels right for you because you're just terrified of being judged or disliked or disapproved of.
Okay, I see the distinction. It's not awareness, it's fear of the reaction.
Exactly. That kind of paralysis, the source suggests, indicates a lack of inner grounding, a weak sense of self.
So what's the alternative then? How do you counter that fear?
The source gives a pretty clear direction. Have pride in your own choices and actions. Not arrogance, but conviction.
Pride in your choices.
And it links this directly to something foundational, living according to your own values. That's described as a basic condition for strong mental fortitude.
Ah, okay, the values piece. That makes sense. It's not about ignoring what others think. It's about having your own internal compass.
Precisely. Your actions are driven by what you believe is important, or, right, not just by trying to guess what will get applause or avoid criticism.
It shifts your whole motivation, doesn't it? From external seeking to internal alignment.
It really does. When your why comes from your own values, others' opinions become, well, secondary. They might still sting sometimes. You might hear criticism, sure.
Yeah.
But it doesn't rock your foundation. Your pride comes from integrity, from being true to yourself, not from external pats on the back.
That feels much more stable. External approval is so fickle, depends on everyone else's mood or agenda.
Exactly. Living by your values provides that consistent inner strength because it's rooted in your choices.
I can immediately picture examples of this, like not speaking up in a meeting with an idea because you think people will think it's dumb, or not going for a passion project because your family thinks it's not sensible, or even staying in a job or relationship that feels wrong because you're scared of disappointing someone or what people might say. That fear really does feel like a cage sometimes.
It absolutely acts like a cage.
Yeah.
And the source is basically saying that unlocking that cage means cultivating that internal compass. Your values.
Right.
It requires consciously deciding that your own integrity matters more than dodging potential disapproval, prioritizing your inner world.
So for you listening, maybe think about a time you held back because you are worried what others might think.
What did it cost you? And maybe identify just one core value you hold dear. This week, could you make one tiny choice based purely on that value and just notice how others react, but don't let it be the deciding factor. It's practice, strengthening that inner anchor.
Okay, so we've gone from inner world to outer world. Now back inward again.
Exactly. Back to our own journey and how we learn or don't learn from our experiences. The third thing the source says mentally strong people avoid. They do not repeat the same mistakes.
Okay, that sounds straightforward, but also maybe easier said than done.
For sure. And the source isn't claiming mentally strong people are perfect. Not at all. It's very realistic. Mistakes, they happen. We all make them. They're kind of essential for growth, actually.
Right, you learn by trying and sometimes failing.
The critical difference, the thing that signals mental strength here, according to the source, it's the ability and the willingness to learn enough from those mistakes so you don't keep making them, ensuring they aren't repeated.
Okay, so it's not about never messing up. It's about not getting stuck in the same rut, making the same error over and over.
Exactly. Like banging your head against the same wall.
But why do we do that? It's so frustrating when you realize, oh no, I did it again. What does the source say causes that repetition?
It points to two main things. First, a lack of humility.
Humility. Interesting. How does that play in?
Humility here means the honest recognition of your own part in what went wrong. Setting aside the ego, the defensiveness, the "it wasn't my fault" reaction, and looking objectively at your role. If you can't do that, if you lack that humility, you might just blame everything else, minimize the mistake, and then you don't learn the real lesson.
Okay, so humility allows you to see clearly. What's the second thing?
The second is a lack of an open mind. You need openness to seek out new strategies.
Right.
Once you've humbly admitted, okay, this approach didn't work, you need to be willing to consider doing things differently. If you're rigid, thinking my way was the only way, you won't look for alternatives, and boom, you repeat the pattern.
So humility to see the problem, open mind to find a new solution.
Precisely. And the mentally strong person, the source says, does the opposite of being defensive or rigid. They don't hide mistakes in shame. They don't make excuses.
What do they do instead?
They see mistakes as basically opportunities, valuable chances for growth.
Yeah.
They analyze them, figure out the lesson, and consciously adjust their approach next time. The mistake becomes data.
That takes real courage, though, to look squarely at your mess up without flinching or blaming.
It does.
And then to have that openness to say, okay, plan A failed, what's plan B or C or Z? It's like active self-correction.
Yeah.
Needs humility and flexibility.
Absolutely. The source implies that hiding or excusing the mistake just stops the learning cold. You never figure out the root cause, so you can't change the behavior.
Right.
The strength comes from embracing that cycle. Acknowledge, understand with humility, adapt with an open mind, apply the new way.
So for you listening, is there a pattern, a recurring challenge, maybe looking at it with total honesty about your part, that humility piece?
And then brainstorming completely different approaches, the open mind piece. Maybe that's the key to finally breaking the loop.
Yeah.
Turning that error into actual wisdom.
Okay, this next point, wow, this feels superhuman. It hits on how we react when others do well. The source says mentally strong people don't feel jealous or hurt by others' success.
Yeah, this one can be tough. The source even uses this great proverb, when a relative buys land, my stomach hurts.
Haha. Oh, wow, that's blunt. But yeah, that pang of envy. When someone you know gets that promotion or buys the house or seems blissfully happy, it's a feeling most of us have probably felt, right? Even if we don't like admitting it.
Absolutely. It seems quite common. But the source makes a key distinction again. It's not necessarily that initial flicker of, well, I wish I had that.
Okay.
The problem where it erodes mental strength is when that envy escalates, when it turns into real jealousy, resentment. The source even uses the word hating the person who succeeded.
Yikes. Okay, that's definitely destructive. Poisonous, really.
Exactly. It poisons your own mind, eats up your energy. So what's the antidote according to the source?
Yeah, how do you stop that downward spiral?
The source offers a really profound insight here. It says that destructive envy tends to disappear only when you have a clear definition and goal for your own success.
Wow. Okay, so it's not about willpower, like stop being jealous.
Right.
It's about building something internal, your own vision, your own path that makes the comparison less relevant. Your focus shifts inward.
Precisely. The source suggests that a lot of destructive jealousy comes from measuring yourself against others' external achievements because you lack your own strong internal benchmark.
Oh, okay.
If you haven't really defined what success means to you based on your values, your passions, your specific goals, you're kind of adrift. So you look around at what others have.
And compare their highlight reel to your messy behind-the-scenes footage. Yeah, that never ends well.
Almost always a losing game. But when you have your own clear definition, it grounds you, gives you your metric. Success isn't about having more land than the relative or the same job title as the colleague.
Right.
It's about your progress towards your goals, living your values, making the difference you want to make. That focus makes others' success. Well, just their success. Maybe even inspiring rather than threatening.
It's like moving from their success somehow diminishes me, that scarcity view, to my success is about my own journey, focusing on your own potential. And it loops back to that earlier point about values, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. Your definition of success should flow right out of your core values. That gives you that inner stability no matter what's happening externally.
So for you listening, how do you react when others succeed? Does it light a fire under you, or does it give you that stomach ache?
And more importantly, what does success truly mean to you deep down?
Yeah.
Separate from society's scorecards or what your neighbor has. Defining that could be a huge step in escaping the comparison trap.
Okay, we've covered inner states, social stuff, learning from the past. Where does the source take us next?
Towards the future. Specifically, how we deal with the fact that things change all the time. And this is a big one for many people. The source states clearly, mentally strong people are not afraid of change.
Not afraid of change? Easier said than done sometimes. We like our comfort zones.
We absolutely do. The source acknowledges that. Seeking safety, predictability is natural, maybe even hardwired. It's not saying wanting stability is wrong.
Okay.
However, it makes a crucial point. Actively avoiding opportunities just because they involve change or new challenges, that's a major roadblock to living what it calls a rich and prosperous life.
A rich and prosperous life. Okay, so why is avoiding change so bad for us, according to the source? What's the mechanism?
It's rooted in psychological growth. The source argues, the more experiences you have with navigating change successfully, the more confident you become, and the more capacity you build for future growth.
It's like exercise again. The first time you try a new workout, it feels awkward, maybe painful.
Right. But you do it. You get through it.
Right.
And the next time, you know you can handle it. Maybe you even push a bit harder. It builds confidence.
Exactly that. The source directly links facing change to building confidence. And increasing your capacity, your ability to handle more complexity, more uncertainty, more newness down the road.
Okay.
Every time you step out of that comfort zone, even just a little, and manage to navigate the new thing, you're collecting evidence. Evidence that you can adapt, you can figure things out, you can tolerate discomfort.
And often you probably discover good things you didn't expect on the other side of the change too.
Often, yes.
Yeah.
It builds this really robust self-trust. Whereas avoiding change, sure, it feels safe in the moment.
Yeah, it's temporarily.
But the source implies it actually stunts your growth. It keeps you from building that mental library of, I handled that. You miss out not just on external opportunities, new jobs, new skills, but on internal ones too. That richness of confidence, resilience, a bigger view of what you're capable of. So the fear of change literally keeps your world, and maybe your sense of self, smaller than it needs to be.
That's the implication. So for you listening, is there a change, a challenge, maybe an opportunity that you've been kind of sidestepping because it feels uncertain or scary?
What potential for growth, for building that confidence muscle, might be waiting just on the other side of that fear based on what we're hearing?
It's a good question to ponder.
And that idea of growth and building capacity over time, it feels like it flows right into the sixth and final point from the source.
It does very nicely.
This one is about patience, about perspective, especially in our fast-paced world. The source says mentally strong people don't only chase visible results.
Right. The source contrasts the speed we see externally, instant info, quick tasks online, with the reality of inner growth, personal development.
Okay.
External things might happen fast, but internal change, personal growth, that stuff happens slowly. The source uses the analogy of dieting.
Yeah.
You can't eat well for one day and expect a miracle on the scale tomorrow.
True, if only.
It takes consistent, sustained effort over time.
So the mentally strong person understands this. They have a different timescale.
Exactly. They approach things with patience and a long-term view.
Yeah.
They get that meaningful goals, especially personal development, learning complex things, building something significant, require steady effort,
Oh, yeah.
often without immediate flashy results.
Right. You might be practicing guitar every day, but you don't suddenly sound like a rock star after week one.
Precisely.
Yeah.
They're prepared to put in that consistent work day in, day out, even when the external proof, the visible progress, isn't showing up yet.
Okay.
And the source's final thought on this is really insightful. Have clear goals, absolutely, but be faithful in the process.
Yeah.
Diligent, sincere.
Faithful in the process. Wow, that phrase really lands.
Doesn't it?
It captures that quiet grit you need when you're just putting in the reps, practicing the scales, writing the pages, doing the workout, working on your mindset. And you don't see huge leaps every single day. Because that pressure for instant gratification is so strong today, it's easy to get discouraged, to think, this isn't working, and just give up if you're only looking for the big, visible wins.
It is. And the source suggests that focusing only on that immediate outcome makes you fragile, makes you vulnerable to quitting when things inevitably slow down or get hard.
So the strength comes from
Yeah.
finding value in the work itself.
Yes. Finding meaning and validation in the process, focusing on being diligent, on showing up, on mastering the small steps today. That's what you can control.
Ah, right. You can't always control how fast the results come, but you can control your effort today.
Precisely. And focusing on that faithful process gives you a sense of accomplishment along the way. It reduces that dependence on external validation we talked about earlier.
Yeah, it ties back again.
You learn to trust that consistent, sincere effort. It adds up. It compounds over time into something significant, even if you can't see the whole picture today. It takes patience, discipline, and trust in those small, steady actions.
So, for you listening, think about a long-term goal. Are you hyper-focused on the finish line, maybe getting impatient?
Or can you find some satisfaction, some strength in the daily grind, in just being faithful in the process? How might shifting your focus to the diligence of the journey change how you feel about pursuing that goal?
Okay, so let's recap these 6 things the source says mentally strong people avoid.
Right. They choose not to waste energy on self-pity or self-hate. That's number 1.
Number 2, they don't get overly worried about others' opinions because they're grounded in their own values.
3, they don't repeat the same mistakes. They learn with humility and an open mind.
4, they avoid getting caught up in destructive jealousy over others' success, focusing instead on their own path and definition of success.
5, they don't fear change. They see it as fuel for confidence and growth.
And finally, 6, they don't only chase the quick, visible results, they commit patiently and faithfully to the process.
It really paints this picture of mental strength, not as being bulletproof or emotionless,
Right.
but as making these really conscious, active choices. Where does my energy go? How do I frame this challenge? What do I truly value? How do I approach growth?
It really emphasizes that training the brain idea from the start. It's a dynamic thing you do, not just a static thing you are.
That focus on choice, on agency, is powerful, isn't it? These aren't just traits you're born with or without. They're behaviors or non-behaviors actively chosen, practiced over time.
Yeah, it makes building mental fortitude feel much more achievable. Like it's within our grasp through the decisions we make every day.
Hopefully, this deep dive into the source has given you, our listener, some really concrete things to think about. Maybe highlighted 1 or 2 of these patterns that really resonate.
Yeah, maybe something you can start consciously practicing letting go of, freeing up that energy for something better.
So as a final thought for you to take away, building on this source material, if mental strength involves actively choosing to avoid these 6 things, which one feels like the biggest hurdle, the most challenging choice for you right now?
And what's maybe one tiny doable step you could take this week to practice avoiding that specific pattern, even just a little bit? How could you start redirecting that energy?
Something to reflect on as you continue building your own inner strength.
Thanks for diving deep with us today.